right, welcome. So we have restorative week, and then we have an extra Monday in the calendar. So next Monday also will be restorative practice. And I felt like it was always, well, I always feel like restorative week is most welcome, but for some reason, especially this month, I think it's a combination of the return to full activity with post-COVID sort of, and summer, and also what's going on in the world. I just feel like this practice is just really what we need to kind of come back into feeling grounded in ourselves and feeling peace within. So we're going to do a large portion of the practice in pranayama practices. So I always find those are very quieting, but we cannot do pranayama effectively without asana beforehand, without poses. The only exception to that is if you do it immediately when you wake up. You don't need to do the asana. You can go right into pranayama in your bed because you're already in the kind of the nervous system state that is needed. And I just really love pranayama for going really deep into a quieter space, and it's very grounding and anchoring for me. So hopefully you find that as well. We'll start seated and taking our non-dominant cross-legged position, and just take a moment to make some adjustments. First of all, propping underneath your sitting bones if you need to elevate, either to get the thigh bones to descend or also to get the lower back out of a rounded position. And then just use your hands against the floor or your props to adjust your shoulders so that they align above the hips, and you feel kind of that coiling action of your shoulder blades moving in toward the chest, keeping a nice amount of length to the abdomen and the lumbar spine. And then positioning your skull right above the spine with your chin, just simply level with the floor, not tilting the chin up or down. And before you move your hands away from the floor, just keep a real sense of heaviness and weight and passivity to your hips and your groins. And then as you're ready, try not to disturb as much of this as you can as you bring your hands together in front of your heart, keeping the shoulders back, and close the eyes, just looking away from your brain. So the 8-limbed path of yoga, it takes us from the outer world into our inner world. So restorative practice is really starting to lead us into a more quiet space. So not only listening without to things around you, but just starting to listen inwards. Even if you can't hear anything, tuning your ears to become more receptive. And staying long enough that you can just really sense you're seated in presence. As you're ready, bowing towards your own heart, moving the hands down to the thighs, gently lifting your head, and allowing the eyes to blink open. And welcome. So we'll come into child's pose, a pose of humility, a pose of surrender. I was just learning in a podcast that the root of humility is humus, which is a Latin word for of the earth, which I love. And so just kind of take this humbling, quieting pose and use any props that you need for support. Just coming nice and close to the earth, Maybe the arms fold so that your head can rest. Maybe the arms stay extended. And sensing into the body, allowing the body to soften into the pose. Our poses are like onions. We move through layers of tension. And the process really can't be forced. So just yielding to the surrendered pose. And if the forehead is grounded, which hopefully it is, very soothing to the nervous system. You might notice some resistance. Maybe there's a gentle tugging in the back. Maybe there's certain parts of your back that are speaking to you, maybe your hips or elsewhere in the body. Just gently making inquiry into these places. Yoga gives us an opportunity to kind of change how we react to certain stressors. When the body is calm, the brain is calm, we might be more equipped to kind of work out some of these stressors, work through them, release tension. These are longer holds today, and I will do my best to be less loquacious so you can really be in a quieter place. Knowing that you're going to stay another minute, keep inquiring as to letting go, moving through, combing through tension with the breath is an expression I love. Start to gently come out of the pose. As you transition, just consider that you're cultivating a state to prepare yourself for pranayama. So try to move gently and conserve your energy. We're going to set up bound angle pose, reclining bound angle pose. And we don't need to use a belt, but we are going to use either a blanket rolled for the torso or a bolster if you have one. And then additional head support. And then of course, if you need it, you're going to also support your hips. You want the legs to become completely passive. And just make sure that you're starting your bolster right where the rib cage begins, and that we don't really have anything propping below that. We really want to get the chest lifted, but we want to keep the lumbar nice and long, and the buttocks flesh gently pulled away from the torso. So that might require you lift your butt, just kind of tuck the tailbone and try to invite the flesh of the buttocks away from the torso. Let your hands rest so your palms are in a receiving position, and have the arms away from your torso to the point where you've opened the armpits, not beyond that point. And then gently tilting your chin toward your chest. And close the eyes. You can always use an eye pillow if it supports the eyes staying closed. You don't want to disrupt the body or the brain just squeezing the eyes shut. So use something over the eyes if it requires effort to keep the eyes closed. And so meeting those resistances initially, maybe the groins are a little reluctant to release. Maybe the shoulders, maybe the jaw, the skin of your face. Maybe somehow you are still exerting effort. Let's see what happens when you completely let go. Imagining the flesh of the chest expanding, the shoulders easily releasing toward the floor. Sensing the softness in the belly. Sensing movement. And if you notice the mind wandering during these longer posture holds, just attach your attention to your breath. So much of our waking life we spend pushing ourselves physically, mentally, in the form of busyness. So just let this practice be about undoing that. When I was little, I used to stand on a chair and untangle the telephone cord by dangling it from high above. Just letting all that tension unravel and release. Taking another few moments here. Maybe imagining or sensing the body becoming just a little heavier against the floor. We're going to gently be moving on to your left hip side. But before we do that, just take a moment to bring the knees in and the feet out. To release your hips, to release your groins from that big bound angle pose. And as you're ready, you can roll over to your left side. And if you're working with a bolster, that's a nice amount of support. If you have one blanket there, you might add a little height. We're going to come into a twist, a supported twist. So with the left bolster against the end of your setup, just help yourself gently turn to face the bolster and then lengthen yourself over it and attempt to bring your right cheek down. If not, maybe the forehead or maybe the left cheek. And then step the arms out wide enough that your shoulders are not confused about what you want them to do. We just want them to surrender and to kind of melt toward the floor. And just trust that you've put in the design of the pose and you've built it well. And now you can just surrender, letting breath and the supports, and gravity, and the pose itself take you deeper. Keep inquiring as to those default contractions we hold in our bodies. Maybe the shoulders are settled, but not completely settled. I can hear the rain outside my door. With your attention extroverting, also invite your listening to introvert. And again, even if you don't hear yourself, tuning into the rhythm of your breath. Maybe the heartbeat. If you can press your ear against your props, you might hear your heartbeat. Feeling how the pose supports the breath, pressing into the upper back, spreading wide. We're going to start to gently help ourselves to the second side. You might just simply switch to the right hip against your setup. You might move your setup so that you don't have to move. I should say you don't have to turn around. You'll still have to move. Just making sure the legs are comfortable, they're heavy. You can have them as open as you need. And then turning toward your setup. And then spreading the length of your trunk down. And again, maybe landing that left cheek, forehead, or right cheek. When you're in these poses, you can start to notice where your tensions pool. We all have our usual suspects. For some of us, it's the lower back. For some of us, it's in our jaw, forehead, the belly. Just really giving yourself attention. I love to listen to Tara Brach podcast, especially when I can't sleep. Her voice is very soothing, but she's a very good spiritual leader. She had a podcast. I had to write down a little quip from her this week. I actually pulled over to write it down because it speaks to the kind of work I wanted to do this week. She said, we can know our inner freedom. It's a timeless space of stillness and acceptance and okayness. This is the intrinsic well-being. That's the gift of spiritual practice, which you can put yoga into that category. That we can ride the waves of life with an inner refuge that gives us peace and contentment and well-being in the midst. You're going to start to gently help yourself out. And you can keep your setup. We're going to do a head supported downward dog. So if you need to modify that with a chair and just stand upright, you can. But otherwise, we're going to take the pose on our hands and feet. And so I like to start with the end of my setup kind of right beneath my forehead. For me, I know this is a good spot because I want to be able to breathe. I want my nose to be free and clear. And you might need more height, so you can play with if you need more. Just try to be conservative of your movements and your effort. When you're ready, you can bring yourself into downward facing dog. And what you don't want to do is bend the elbows to reach your props. You don't want to have to distort the pose. So add height if you need to add a block, or if you need to take the chair instead of doing this version, you can do that. But try to put the skull in alignment with the spine. So we want to be resting toward the crown of the head rather than on the hairline or forehead. And with this fifth point of contact in the pose, we kind of support the hands and feet. We feel a little bit more of a quietness in the pose than we normally would without the head support. And try to lengthen through the crown of the head. So rather than having your props kind of pushing on your head, reach through the props with the crown of the head. Try to be a inverted letter V shape. Deep forward pelvic tilt. Nice length in your trunk. Nice length in your legs. So one way that we're more amenable to pranayama is we physically can tire ourselves, which will benefit us. It will make us more ready for that stillness rather than feeling a restlessness. The body will be very ready to rest. So this is the most strenuous thing we'll do today in this practice. We're just gonna hold another minute if you can. If you need to leave, feel free to come down and take a supported child's pose or another pose that helps you release. Start to bring yourself out of the pose, lowering the knees. You might sit back in child's pose for a moment. Now we're gonna reduce the height, probably. We're gonna do supported Sphinx pose. So you can use your bolster, you can use a rolled blanket or 2 rolled blankets, and we're going to have it running horizontally in front of, and right above the navel. And then we want to have the elbows be able to sit down on the floor under the shoulder line. So supporting the back bend here so that we don't have to exert more. And then take your feet wider than your hips. Make sure that you've lift the inner thighs on each side and that the outer hips roll down, that you've kind of taken that gentle pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt. And then we're going to take our elbows a little bit forward now and join the hands and let your forehead rest against your thumbs. So there's just a slight turning up on the dial of the effort here with the pelvic tilt and with pressure in the elbows. Just to maintain the integrity of the pose, but everything else should become very passive. So relax the buttocks. Make sure your small toes are a little bit weighted, that you're not just rolling in toward the big toes. And let your head really fully meet the thumbs, truly resting there. Feeling how the pressure to the front body encourages the breath to spill into the back body and to spread. Thinking about your tailbone like the lens of a periscope, just keeping it pointing down toward the floor. I'm going to start to lift your head. And take your hands, point your fingers towards the corners of your mat. And just pressing into your hands, taking on a little bit of a deeper arc to your spine, keeping your pubic bone really well engaged with the floor. And now angling your head up. Just stay for about 10 breaths here. Think about the inner elbows trying to point themselves up at the ceiling. Keep some weight to your small toes. And gently soften out. Let your elbows relax. We're going to transition to our backs. So we're going to be lying down on this bolster. If it's not a bolster, it's a blanket. If it's not a blanket, it can be 2 blocks, but we're going into Urdhva Mukha Paschimottanasana, so upward facing forward bend. If you're using 2 blocks though, you want to cover it with a blanket so that your back doesn't feel irritated by that surface. And so you can place your, whatever you're going to use, center of your mat. And you'll sit on top of it. And then come down to a reclining position. And we'll just stay here for a moment. Taking the feet wide, letting the knees gently angle in. Hands on your belly. And rocking the head until the back of the neck comes closer to the floor. Noticing the depth of your exhalations here. Gravity against the belly. Now start to reach your arms overhead. Get the backs of the hands on the floor. Your fingernails extending towards the space above you. And then we'll start from kind of our reclining child's pose legs, lifting each leg one at a time, keeping the knees bent and letting the weight of the legs fall toward the torso. Keep hugging your chin, snuggling it into that little pocket between your collarbones. And now an even deeper exhale is available. Your inhales might become a little less. Kind of tricking the body into parasympathetic nervous system when we extend the exhalation, when we limit the inhalation. And now take your legs up. And with the legs straight, now let the weight of the legs start to fall toward the torso. Keep your chin tilting in toward your chest. Now in another class, we might be trying to resist the lower sacrum toward the floor. We're not doing that here. Just let your legs really fall toward the chest without holding back, without trying to keep your lower sacrum grounded. You might be able to hear your breath here. Maybe the exhale has more of a sound now that it's deeper. We'll start to fold the knees and gently step your feet back to the floor one at a time. Move the feet out wide, the knees again fall toward each other, and the hands can move back to the belly. And now you're going to gently lift your hips enough that you can slide your props out from under you and take your, whether it's a blanket or bolster, take it off to your left side. And so our last asana that we're going to do is a twist. So from your back, you can stretch your arms out to each side. And now we're going to bring the right knee onto your bolster. And then you're going to try to let your right shoulder descend back toward the floor. You might start with your right hand on your side body. You might extend the right arm sideways. You might even look toward the right arm with your whole head. And you might be meeting some resistance here. So just thinking about the exhales, each and every exhale is a chance to offload some sort of tension, some sort of holding back you might be experiencing here. Keeping your left leg passive. And if you're not able to truly surrender the right leg, you might need a little more height under that knee or the inner calf muscle or both. And after an exhalation, gently step the knee off the supports and you're going to help yourself back to your back body. Take some time there, rearranging yourself so that you feel even and spacious. And then move your soft prop off to your right side. So it's available and ready for the left knee. And then you'll be bending your left knee and placing it on that prop to your right. You can extend your right leg. It does not have to be active or perfectly straight. Just lengthen it out as much as you can without compromising your sense of passivity. And then either draping your left hand over your side ribs, or maybe extending the arm out perpendicular from your trunk. And the goal is to be able to be here without a lot of effort. So rather than holding ourselves in these poses, being held. Just taking a little searchlight of your attention throughout your body here. Noticing if there's anywhere that could stand to release a bit more, to let go, to arrive, to expand rather than contract. And again, even if you can't hear your breath, just imagine you're tuning your ears to the radio station of your breath, and you're observing other qualities of your breathing. Maybe it's the rhythm, the movement that the body takes with each breath. Maybe there's a difference between your inhale and your exhale. And again, just see if you can allow your body to grow any amount heavier against the floor, against the prop. And when you're ready, you're going to finish off an exhale. Just gently start to come out of the twist and back to your full back body. Take a moment to extend your legs and arms. We're going to take a little shavasana before we come into pranayama. But don't worry about lots of accoutrements. Just have your arms and legs extended, palms up. Hopefully we've set ourselves up for a receptive pranayama practice by addressing the tension in the body. We can't address the mental tensions without starting with the body. So just fold your hands in, start to bend your knees, and roll to your right side. We're going to start with a seated pranayama, alternate nostril breathing. And so you want to give yourself ample support, not only under the sitting bones, but also you might give your knees some support. We want to feel really stable. And classically, pranayama is done seated. And we learn a lot of pranayamas reclining because it's a bit more accessible for most. So this will be the only seated pranayama we do. We always work with the right hand, even if we're dominant left hand. And we're going to fold in the index and middle fingers. And you want to imagine you have something the size of a tennis ball in your armpit. We don't want to clamp the arm against the side body, which shuts down that vital energy pocket of the armpit. Your other hand is just resting on your thigh. And what we do is we're going to inhale. We'll just go through a practice round here, both nostrils. You're going to block the right nostril with your thumb and exhale out through the left. And then inhale through the left. At the top of the breath, closing that nostril off with the ring finger, releasing the breath out the right, and inhaling the right. Closing at the top of the breath, opening the left, releasing the breath, inhaling through the left. Top of the breath, closing and emptying out the other side. So if you visualize this, you take the breath in one side, out the other. Just taking a moment, you can release your hand, close your eyes, and rest your arm. So throughout the day, the sides of the body, there's the Inga and the Pingala sides of the Sushumna, which is the spine. We have left and right, the Ida and the Pingala. So throughout the day, the sides of the nostrils, one is more clear than the other. This occurs all day long. So when we practice Nadi Shodhana, you'll notice that one of your nostrils is a little bit more blocked than the other. So I'm just going to welcome you to use your free thumb or index to open that nostril cavity for the exhale and for the inhale, and you'll be able to feel a little bit more clarity and breath potential, breath capacity if you do that. So Nadi Shodhana is it's a pranayama that's taught to entry-level yogis, and it's beneficial to do throughout the day. It can be up mood, it can be energizing, it can also be settling. So it's a versatile pranayama. So we're going to begin. We're going to do this practice. And I'm just going to have you kind of self-guide. Anytime with pranayama, I always kind of caution practitioners to listen more to yourself than to me, because the idea is not to get irritated, it's not to get frustrated. So if you're sensing that it's just not soothing the nervous system up to a deeper level, then it's really not useful. Okay, so let's begin with our position, our mudra, which is our hand position. We're going to inhale, free and clear both nostrils. The top of the inhale, you can block that right nostril with your thumb and exhale the left nostril. And I'll guide us through the first few rounds and then I'll be quiet. Inhale the left, close the left, and exhale the right. I have a more blocked right side, so I'm using my thumb here to stretch that flesh away. Top of the breath, you're closing, emptying the left. You come back to the exhale, the right nostril. You can release your hand. We're going to have Jnana Mudra for a moment, which is just the backs of your hands resting against your knees. Joining the tips of the index fingers with the tips of the thumbs. And extending the other 3 fingers toward the floor. And there's enough pressure of your hands against your knees that you feel the chest move forward and the shoulders move back. So mudras are hand positions, but they direct our energy. And this is the meditative mudra. Jnana is referring to meditation. And just sensing into the nostrils. Hopefully there's a more robust feeling of breathing, more openness. It's okay if there isn't, but usually that's one of the main side effects, is we feel a little bit more of an increased breath capacity, more balance between the sides of the body. Ida and the Pingala, which wrap around the Sushumna Nadi, which is the spine. So we're going to come into our reclining pranayamas. And so that you don't have to disrupt yourself a whole lot, I'm going to have a setup for, we're doing 2 here. You're going to set up for, we're doing a reclining Brahmari, which is the bumblebee. We do that seated a lot, but today we're doing it reclining. And because we have our arms out to the sides, you don't want to be exerting energy there. So you're going to put significant amount of height to your blanket. So they're going to be arm supports, more like elbow supports. So just put one on each side. I did a little trifold, or some people call them zigzag or zed, but it helps evenly fold that blanket up to a nice high level. So if you don't have a lot of blankets to work with, you can always use your mat to support your spine. We do want to support the spine. You can use your bolster. You can also put 2 blocks kind of at their lengths end to end. But what we want to do is have height from the rib cage up to the head, and we want the head a little more elevated than the spine, because we want that chin to chest connection. So with the arm supports that we need today, you might have to get a little more creative with your setup. So just make sure that your head will have the height, your arms will have support, and also your torso will have support. So Brahmari is going to be second because I find it a lot more quieting, so I thought we'd end with Brahmari. So you can just have your traditional pranayama position with the arms. You might have to kind of push the arm supports out of the way to get your arms in your kind of Shavasana 45-degree position. Have your feet out wide. Again, you can always use an eye pillow if your eyes have trouble staying closed. And blanket your body if you're feeling cool. Take glasses off if you have glasses. Should have said that before. Alternate nostril breathing as well. It just kind of keeps us in the outer world when we have our glasses on. Also try not to touch your props with your hands here. And we're going to come into Viloma exhale. You do not have to do Ujjayi breathing today. We're just working with 2 cessations on the exhale, which means we're breaking the exhale up into 3 parts. So it'll be exhale, pause, exhale, exhale. And then we're going to do a full cycle of easy inhale, easy exhale, and then repeat. And again, you can self-guide. If you need more easy breathing between those attempts at Viloma exhale, you have to discern that. If you need to just come into watching the breath, Ujjayi 1 is watching the breath, you can do that. So we're going to inhale, nice big inhale. Exhale a third of the breath and pause just for a beat. Another third. And final third. And inhale, normal breath in. Exhale, normal breath out. Another breath in. Exhale a third of the breath, pause. Another third. Another third. So try not to strain, try not to harden the abdomen. Don't over pause, it's just for a beat. Remember, these practices are very delicate, very subtle, not meant to be harsh or agitating. Another in-breath, exhale. And when you're doing those pauses, you might be able to sense or even hear or feel your heartbeat. Let these practices draw you in. You're going to continue a few more cycles on your own. If you're still working with it, give it one more Paloma exhale. And then just come back into your easy breathing. And now we're going to rest the elbows on our arm supports. You may need to add blocks. We want to have the elbows truly resting, not trying to find those props. And then you're going to be creating your, it's called Shanmukhi Mudra. So you're plugging the ears and you're creating kind of a mask. We have the index fingers at the brow line. We have the middle fingers sealing the lids together, eyelids. The ring fingers outside the nostrils, not pressing the nostrils, just kind of right next to the nostrils. And then pinkies outside the lip line. What we're going to do is breathe in, and on your exhale, it's a soft humming with the lips sealed. And we're going to do 3 in a row. And on that third one, when you finish, you can release the mask, the mudra, unfold the arms, and just sit with that very profound silence that can follow here. And then from there, we're going to move directly into the unsupported Shavasana. So no pranayama supports. You can keep a head support if you need. So once you're ready, you have your mudra on, you can take a breath in and plug the ears. As you transition off your blankets, try to do so with the least amount of effort. Coming down flat on your back. Leave you all here to stay as long as you'd like. Thank you for being here today. Namaste.